Hey, it's Mose, and welcome back to another video. Siege battles in Monster Hunter are the site of some of the series' most epic and memorable battles, but also some of its worst and least interesting. It's one of the things that I'd say sets Monster Hunter apart from other games of similar styles. Throughout the series, the developers have experimented a lot with the formula and created many different types of quests that can fall under the Siege Quest umbrella. Today, let's talk about some of these and speculate on what the future of Siege quests might hold in Wilds. Before we begin, last time we spoke I was at under 100 subscribers and now I am over it. That's very exciting, so thank you for that. I will continue to make videos you hopefully enjoy. With that being said, if you're not subscribed, make sure to do that, and like the video if you enjoy and leave a comment to let me know what you think. Also, go check out my playlist of other Monster Hunter videos you're sure to enjoy as well after. Thanks! As I'm sure many know, Siege quests got their start back in the first game with Lao Shan Lung and Fatalis. At the time, Siege quests were in their most fundamental form. They were quests where you fought a unique monster in its own map with the aid of ballista, cannons, and the Dragonator. In the case of Lao Shan, you were also defending the fortress and would fail if you dealt enough damage to it. These quests were not particularly complex or hard, but instead were largely just spectacle battles, fighting huge monsters that were way too powerful to fight with conventional methods and were instead emergency defense assignments to repel the threat at any cost. This would shape the future of Siege quests for many games to come, and in classic fashion, they innovated on the formula immediately. I don't know what people thought of these quests back in the day, but Fatalis and Lao Shan have certainly left their mark on the series, with Lao Shan having a bit of a cult following about him, despite his actual fight being not much to talk about. Monster Hunter 2 DOS was designed much more like an immersive hunting sim, and Siege quests were fitted into this quite well. Sieges in DOS were limited-time online events that happened on a schedule. Much of DOS's story and lore was centered around the town of Dundorma, and so siege battles would have various monsters attacking the city, and hunters would be called in to defend against them using the city's defenses. In terms of gameplay, they remained largely the same as in Gen 1. You were just fighting a monster in a special arena and using the defense mechanics. The innovation here was mainly in the presentation, but it shouldn't be undersold for that. This is my personal favorite version of Siege quests because the gravity and importance placed on them due to the limited event nature really adds a lot to make them feel epic. And since a lot of good gear is tied up in getting parts from the siege monsters, there's no shortage of people doing them every time they're up, so it really feels like a community effort to defend the city. There is, however, another type of quest added in DOS, which is in the category of, for lack of a better term, boss battles. Quests where you fight a monster in a special map but without defense mechanics. Quests like Yamatsukami or White Fatalis fall into this group. These quests still feel like sieges in terms of being big spectacle battles, even though they don't use the traditional mechanics, so I'd still include them in the same general category. Generation 3 was where siege quests started to get really spiced up. Tri continued what DOS started with limited availability siege quests against Gen Morin, but Gen Morin was much different from what we had seen before. He was fought on a boat skimming across the sea of sand as he swam alongside you. The boat was loaded with ballista, cannons, and binders, and you had to take him down with them while also defending the integrity of the boat. But on top of that, you could actually climb on board his back at certain parts, allowing you to hit weak points and mine special ores, culminating in a final showdown on land as he slowly moves toward your crashed boat, reminiscent of the Lao Shan battle. The spectacle and complexity of this battle was much higher than anything that had been seen in Monster Hunter before. It could even be quite challenging if you didn't know what to do or didn't have a party to play with online. 3rd Gen still had more classic-style sieges as well, such as Cedius, where you just fought him normally and could use the defense mechanics present as well. We also got many more boss battle-type quests with Dire Moralis and Abyssal Lagiacurse. Overall, 3rd Gen expanded the various types of siege battles, and we saw the first big experiments with mechanics in Gen Morin. With 4th Gen came a higher focus on boss battles than previous games, with traditional siege battles getting put to the side a little bit. The only classical sieges we got were Darin Morin, Gogmazios, and Nakarkos, if you can count that. I don't know if you can really count Nakarkos, I'll be honest with you, but, I mean, there's Ballista present, kinda? I don't know. Meanwhile, we got many boss battles like Shigaru Magala, Dalamadura, and Molten Tigrex. There weren't any major shakeups to the formula with these, though as a personal aside, Gogmazios is certainly my favorite classical siege battle. He's challenging, a huge spectacle, but the fight also utilizes the various siege mechanics quite well. He's what I would consider the pinnacle of siege quests. I think boss battles in 4U were some of the hardest the series has ever seen, so that's something also to note in this generation. As we move into more modern history, things get a lot more complex. As we all know, 5th Gen was a time of much change to the series, and siege quests were no different. Monster Hunter World brought in only one new traditional siege battle with Zora Magdaros, and I don't think Zora was very well liked. I think the biggest problem with him was that they tried to lean too hard into spectacle with very little substance. The quest is practically unfailable, regardless of your participation, and you never really got to actually fight him. Even Lao Shan, which is another siege quest that gets criticized often for being kind of boring, still makes you feel like you're actually fighting the monster with being able to hit him in the head or the belly. They tried to sell the experience on fighting a gigantic, mountain-sized monster, but really just made you feel like you're hitting rocks and waiting for a timer to tick down so the quest can be over. They even had to bring in Nergigante as an invader to make you feel like there's literally anything to do on the quest. Other than that, Iceborne brought back Fatalis, who works largely the same as he does in Old Gen as far as being a siege quest goes. Xeno'jiiva was a pretty standard boss battle fight as well. But there's two experimental quests in World that I think are what make the discussion going forward more interesting. That being Kolv Turath and Safi'jiiva. These are sieges that don't particularly follow any previous trends. Both of these quests are able to be done in cooperation with hunters beyond your party of 4, and are largely just DPS checks to meet a certain requirement to win. I think as concepts, these quests are quite good and offer some interesting new gameplay and ideas in the realm of siege quests. They were, however, controversial largely because the method of loot acquisition deviated from the Monster Hunter standard of gathering parts to make gear and into RNG loot drops. Rise experimented in a different direction with Rampages, but let's not ruin this good time we're having with talk about that. Jokes aside, Rampages were Rise's own take on sieges taken in a tower defense direction. These are probably one of the series' most catastrophically failed mechanics. I've never even heard anyone praise them genuinely beyond thinking they're inoffensive at best. They didn't even try to bring them back in Sunbreak in any form. To their credit, All Mother Narawa was actually a pretty good siege fight, and Sunbreak has no shortage of crazy spectacle boss fights. This is probably the last time you'll hear me say anything good about Rise on this channel. 5th Gen's extensive experimentation with siege fight gameplay gives us much consideration for the future. The devs have shown their desire to bring new types of gameplay and quests to the series, especially in the form of high-impact spectacles that require more than the normal 4-hunter party beating the monster to death. I should note that not all of 5th Gen's developments came out of thin air. In particular, quests that require coordination across multiple parties of hunters is not new to the series. Those of you who partake of games beyond the scope of the main series already know this, but Monster Hunter Frontier has quests like these already, like with the monster Raviente. So taking this all into consideration, what kind of conclusions can we make on what Wild's siege quests will look like? We know what type of game Wilds aims to be thanks to the beta, and I think the emphasis on immersion, the interconnectedness of the world, and the ease of connection between players can inform us a lot on what siege quests will be like. Truthfully, I would be surprised if we see anything resembling a classic siege fight in Wilds at all. I think the setting of the game gives a good opportunity to bring back monsters like the Morins, considering the giant desert, but I would expect them to be entirely reworked into new fights if that happened. I think it's fights like Safi'jiiva and Iceborne that will give the most inspiration for Wild sieges. I've long thought that Monster Hunter is a prime setting for more MMO-like mechanics. I have many critiques of Frontier, but it does provide a good proof of concept of what I'm talking about. Frontier's mechanics felt very restricted by the hardware and its age, though. I think a newer game that seeks to really flesh out the online connectivity between players and the gameplay could do so much more. What I want to see more than anything else is true 16-player hunts. Large-scale battles utilizing all the various mechanics of sieges that have come before, with many players all in the same quest. This may sound ridiculous, but I don't think it's as outlandish or unlikely as it may seem. I think Monster Hunter as a series has been building towards something of this scale for a very long time, and an ambitious game like Wild that's already shaking up the foundations of the series in unexpected ways could not be a more perfect time to try it out. Beyond that, I would expect Wild Sieges to come with limited availability similar to Dose. The theming of them will probably be tied into the world in some way that requires a call to defense by the lobby. We'll certainly see some brand new monsters in Sieges, but I think aside from the Morins that I already mentioned, Gogmazios could be a pretty fitting old monster to bring back as well. I also think we'll get some pretty banger normal boss fights. If nothing else, 5th Gen did spectacle fights extremely well, and I don't expect that to change in Wilds at all. Even Raging Bracky got made into a proper spectacle boss battle that was challenging to boot. If I had any old boss battle I'd want remade in a new game, I think it would be Molten T-Rex. He's extremely hard and very fun in 4U, and I think he'd make for a fantastic addition in a new game as a title update monster or something. In terms of monsters I'd like to see come back that don't have any particular precedent for being in Wilds, I'd love to see White Fatalis get an Iceborne Fatalis style remake. White Fatalis is my favorite of the Fatalis trio, and I'd be really excited to see what a modern take on him would be like. He's the most over-the-top and supernatural of the Fatalises, so I think there would be a lot of potential for some really crazy stuff in a reworked battle with him. So to kind of wrap this all up, I think Siege Quests are going to be a place of continued contention in Wilds, much to no one's surprise. I think we're going to see a lot of new ideas, and some of them are almost certainly not going to hit with some people. There's going to be some people who get very upset, and some people who say those guys are just getting skill issued. So basically business as usual. As they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But yeah, I don't know. This video has been kind of rambly. I just wanted to yap about siege fights because I think they're cool. And I'm still riding the hype from the Wilds beta. Maybe Wilds will just bring back Zora Magdaros. Who's to say? That's all from me for now. See ya.